when you try to assign some complex explanation to something, when in reality, it's like what you're seeing is what it is.
Yeah.
You don't need to build all of this complexity into understanding. So what is all of this? Well, experience and common sense is telling me there's more to it. But you'd see, it's.
You don't want that in CCP hands. I completely understand.
I don't think so.
So you assisted in stopping that.
I think so.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Now,
not to let a great American company.
That's right.
Got to keep these great American
keep
companies
them right here in America. But with all the data that you're getting, you're tracking location stuff. Obviously, you're tracking patterns of life and all that. Every great investigator I've ever talked with, from any level of anything, whether it be a detective or a guy at FBI or, someone who's tracking stuff for intelligence, they'll always say the phrase, follow the money, right? That's what they're looking for. The money is always going to be the end all be all answer. I mean, you solve murder cases following the money.
Yep.
How much of that, I mean, I don't even know if that incorporates into anything you do, but how much of that, if it does, incorporates into what you do for you to be able to put like 2 and 2 together where you're like, ooh, I can track that he's moving money to this. Can you even track like if they're moving money to this bank account or something with the data you look at?
No, that's an interceptor. That's accessing.
Okay.
And I've been asked to look at, can you detect money laundering or can you detect money layering and, things that are financial in nature. You're not necessarily looking at flow of funds, but, is somebody visiting an ATM machine, 7 different ATM machines in the period of an hour because they're layering withdrawals or deposits. And that's hard. That's hard to do because it's like, I need to detect you at this ATM at this millisecond that you're there. But financial analysis, that's a harder beast because you need to get into the systems. And you remember, like, I didn't hack, engineer, intercept, or steal. So I'm not hacking into these systems to understand these patterns of life, which, from a cost perspective, it's like if I don't have to hack to detect the flow of funds, but I can understand patterns of life that give me other avenues, is that a more cost-effective, faster way of getting to what I need in order to build to write an affidavit or a request for a warrant.
Gotcha. Yeah, because one of the threads I've never seen someone pull on is the 1992 thread with Robert Maxwell. So when Tara Palmieri did that podcast, she did 2. One was called like the Maxwells. The other one was called like Epstein. And they were both 8 parts. It was basically a documentary where they just didn't have cameras. She's going around and interviewing people. She had Virginia Giuffre coming around with her, who's now deceased, who was a victim of Epstein. But one of the most surreal interviews I've ever heard was she got Juan Alessi, the housekeeper for Epstein. He agreed to go on tape.
Yep.
And so this was one of those situations where she and Virginia showed up to his house that had a gate outside of it and introduced who it was. And Virginia just said, "Oh my God, Juan." He goes, "Oh my God, yeah, come in." And they come in and they ask, like, "Hey, we're doing an investigation. Would you agree to be recorded?" And to his credit, he said yes. And it's one of the most painful things to listen to because you simultaneously are like, how the fuck could you let this happen? And you also feel bad for the guy at the same time. It's a very strange dynamic. But to his credit, he was very forthcoming about a lot of things. And one of the things he laid out that stuck with me is he goes, he worked for Jeffrey in like the late 80s. And he's like, he had wealth. Nothing crazy.
That's right. I saw this.
Yeah, he lived on the Upper
And all of a
East
sudden, it's like, yeah.
Right. He said 1992, something crazy happened, man. Like, he had the plane, he got the apartment and
Sounds
the
more
Macy's
like Tony
apartment.
Montana right there.
Sorry. But yeah, you get the power, then you get the money. But anyway, so he was like, he was balling, like hundreds of millions of dollars seemingly came through the door. And the connection here, I'm bringing this up because of some of the L Brands work you did, but Leslie Wexner signed over that apartment on East 71st Street to him effectively for free. It's the number one townhouse in the entire
Signed
city.
over power of attorney.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, more than that. But I'm saying like literally his dwelling and gave it to him.
Yep.
At the end of 1991, November 1991, Robert Maxwell died off the coast of Africa and on his yacht. Now, they say he killed himself. I don't think he did. I think Robert Maxwell was a raging narcissist who, we also know was a prolific spy. He was most likely approached by his people, kind of like Frank Pentangeli in Godfather 2, and said, listen,
got to do the right
it's
thing.
over, got to do the right thing, like the Roman army used to do. And he couldn't do it. And so they probably, I am speculating, but they probably did it for him. And ironically, Robert Maxwell left behind like a $450 million pension scam and his estate destitute. What's interesting about that is you have a wealthy scion leaving behind a fraud that's not exactly looked upon well by society, and yet his two sons who were put on trial for it after he died were found not guilty in British courts. That's pretty hard to do. Secondly, whether you like the guy or not, and I see no reason to like him, but he was put in a position to be a very effective businessman. He had major companies that made a lot of money. And the idea that suddenly he was worth nothing and needed to bilk his pension for his employees at the Daily Mail as the second largest publication in the world makes – this is when Princess Diana was alive
Right,
too. Like they're printing money left and right. No way. The fact then that Jeffrey Epstein gets all this money funneled to him in the immediate aftermath of that, and we know by estimations is worth somewhere, he was worth at that point somewhere in the neighborhood of $400 to $450 million. And no one knows how this guy ever made any money besides that.
Given financial advice as whoever he worked for.
Which no one ever saw him do. That was another thing Juan Alessi said. He's like, I never really saw him work.
Yeah.
I never saw him giving advice.
A guy who's like, the guy who is really good at hiding money. Yeah. That's a skill that you don't just watch a YouTube video or
that's right.
And how to. You're an accountant, right? And you know how to do this. So.
That's what I'm saying. So no one's ever pulled on that thread. And the problem is it's before we got iPhones and stuff like that. So I don't think you could do it. But there has to be someone who's good who could find a way to pull on that thread and find something there, because I have no proof to be able to say definitively this is what it is, but there is a lot of circumstantial evidence when you look at the players involved and who they were involved with that says somehow that got from point A to point B.
Yeah, the money trail's got to be there. This isn't, we're not funneling $888 to avoid a suspicious activity report. So I think a lot, this is how I look at all of this. Like, all right, I have sort of common sense informed by experience. Occam's razor. When you try to assign some complex explanation to something, when in reality, it's like what you're seeing is what it is.
Yeah.
You don't need to build all of this complexity into understanding. So what is all of this? Well, experience and common sense is telling me there's more to it than just a guy who got lucky. And whether it was Mossad or there was definitely an influence operation underway, because what's the point of all of this?
Right.
Who who benefits? I don't know, but there are too many facts that just don't make sense in trying to assign them logical explanations.
Correct.
Yeah, he was, really good, or why? And if you look at like why Epstein, because he was probably controllable and he could be told what to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that there's more to it than common sense is what I'm saying. There's more. There's something here. if we have, I think from a government perspective, I think we overclassify. We 25-year-old OSINT analyst, reads an article in the New York Times and thinks there's something there that should be looked at. That becomes a, top secret thing, artifact.
That's right.
When we're dealing with, human intelligence and operations where people could get killed because they're working with us, classify that shit. Like, Americans do not need to know. But when we start overclassifying, then, the bias is to do something that, maybe you wouldn't normally do, but I can classify it and keep it from transparency.
Right.
And I think we've gone so far, in classifying everything that we don't know how to unravel something. Like, we got ahead of ourselves.
Yes.
This was good intentions. But this was an operation that went bad, and we need to shed daylight on that if there was involvement.
Well, that's the thing. It's like a bad gambler. You get so deep in the hand that you just have to keep doubling down, and it feels like they've had to be dishonest so many times about
that
this.
They believe,
Yeah.
whatever they're telling themselves.
Yes.
I don't know, but again, what I do know is that any common sense person's going to look at this,
of course,
and say, "What?"
Yeah, it's a unifying issue.
So
yeah.
And I think the administration would be surprised by the public's reaction if there was something to be transparent about that might hurt the fabric, or I think they'd be surprised by the reasonableness of Americans to say, okay, the transparency.
Really?
Yeah.
You believe that?
Yeah. If people violated laws, broke laws, we need prosecutions, not special count. We need people to get prosecuted. We don't have enough of that. But I think that the American people would be able to say, okay, we're not. Somebody's going to be accountable, but this notion that we need to be protected by people who know better, I think is how we get ourselves into these predicaments.
Yes.
Patriot Act.
Yep.
Well, if you saw the intel Senator, tell me the intel. Show me the intel that you're seeing that necessitates bulk data collection on every American. And don't tell me it's pedophilia and Al-Qaeda.
Yep.
Tell us. And you might just find public opinion saying, okay, we agree.
Yeah, but they would never want that. They don't want to put power in the hands of the people.
Because it's so powerful to say, if you saw the intel that I saw,
if you knew what
if you knew, I was read in, I went into the skiff. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And you see that, 1 minute they are the proponent of civil rights and privacy, and they get the read on, and now they are all in.
Yes.
They are. This was cool. I got a classified brief. This is cool. I'm all in. And I think that's, power is seductive.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.